What famous place is not worth visiting? Hollywood Walk of Fame. It's a sidewalk and outside of maybe big events where they may clean the ones around where photos may be taken. It otherwise is just covered in dirt from people's shoes and some are barely legible because they haven't been cleaned in ages. Platform 9 3/4 in King's Cross Station, London. Stupid metal statue on a straight wall, a horrible queue to taking a photo with you on it, and another 100-meter long queue to the small and very expensive Harry Potter shop. I was there middle of the day in off-season, don't want to even think about it on high season. Checkpoint Charlie in Berlin. It used to be the border between the US and Soviet sectors, but all that's left of it is a shack and a sign, and the only thing you can do is pay to get your photo taken with someone in uniform. There's a frickin' McDonald's next to it. The Liberty Bell, you can see it just fine from the sidewalk, and that's about as close as you would get to it inside too. No need to spend money wait in line to see it, plus, there's tons to do in Philly besides look at a bell. The Empire State Building. It's $44 to $77 and you wait for like 90 minutes to get into the first elevator, then wait at least another 90 minutes to go further up. I gave up after 2 hours total and went and had fun in the city instead of spending 3 to 4 hours of my life standing in line. I was fortunate to go on top of the WTC in 2000 and I'm sure the views were much better from there. And my understanding is Top of the Rock is much better organized, shorter waits and better views of Midtown today. Literally anywhere in the Tower of London is better than seeing the crown jewels. You're stuck in a huge queue with a zillion sweaty tourists for hours, and you get to see the jewels for about 30 seconds before you are pushed alone. My older brother had seen it on a trip years ago and he said it wasn't worth it. The rest of the tower was not crowded at all and I got to see a ton of neat stuff with very few other people around. Mount Everest, it's dangerous enough that you might die but not enough that the accomplishment of reaching the top is very impressive. Most of the dangers are mitigated by the Sherpas, who die quite a lot trying to prepare the path for what basically amount to a glorified tourist trap. While the view is beautiful I'm sure, what makes this place not worth it is the human cost. In Denmark, The Little Mermaid is not worth it. The Alamo, you walk in and it's like yep this is the Alamo, and then you're done and off to the Riverwalk which is dope. Skip the Alamo and go to the Riverwalk. Bali, tourists have made the place a dump. Bourbon St. It smells like pee. It's full of douchebags. Don't pet the horses. Mona Lisa Room of the Louvre. So underwhelming. Niagara Falls, New York. I live here, and while the falls themselves are beautiful and there are plenty of cool local businesses around, there really isn't anything that fun or interesting to do. If you want to see the falls, go to the Canadian side. Maui. Too small and way too expensive. Oahu is way better. San Francisco. Your car will get broken into. The Leaning Tower of Pisa, not matter which angle you look at it, the tower isn't that interesting. Neither is the city of Pisa, Italy. Basically nowhere on earth is worth visiting. Thanks once again Reddit. Egypt is always number 1 on these LOL. Plymouth Rock, La Brea Tar Pits, Egypt, the DMV. The steam clock in Vancouver. It's not even a real steam clock, it's electric, and all the locals laugh about tourists taking selfies with it. Planet Fitness. The so-called Hollywood Walk of Fame. It is sleazy and full of trash tourism. Surprise! Mount Rushmore. Sure the history is kind cool, but the monument is nothing really spectacular. Google it and save yourself the trip. Now if you're going through South Dakota and are in that area, go see Crazy Horse. It's a work in progress but it's %100 privately funded by Crazy Horse's tribe. Go to the gift shop and buy something to support the Lakota Sioux. Prison. Shared bathrooms, terrible customer service, other guests were unnecessarily aggressive, staff were not friendly at all. Honestly seeing all these comments makes me kinda happy and surprised my country isn't mentioned here, Portugal. The White House, sort of, it's cool to be inside but it's literally just a house. Hands down, Disney World. The elbow-to-elbow crowd ruins any magic and fantasy of the park. Wall Drug, South Dakota. Anywhere Disney is just a culture-less money pit. It will exhaust you. Pat and Gino's in Philly. If you want a real cheesesteak you go to D'Alessandro's. The Alamo. Sit in line for an hour or more to see a church with holes. ITT, stay away from Hollywood. Is Florida famous? 'Cause yeah. It sounds like the planet as a whole can be skipped. The Great Pyramids. Google satellite that ish and you'll understand. Cat's Deli, it's $30 plus for a pastrami sandwich and you will wait in line for forever. San Francisco. Egypt. All of it. Dubai. Oppressors of women head and face covering, heavy-handed law, one religion nation, preach anything else and you die. No American should support that ever. Eiffel Tower. So much crowd. Watch it at midnight from far away just for the lights. Else it ain't worth it. Paris. Rude and expensive. The Mall of America is just a big mall. If you've been to a mall, it's not much different than that. Just bigger. Southernmost point, you're in Key West. It's 90 degrees out and there's a million things for you to do. And yet you decided to stand in the hot sun, in an unshaded area, to take a stupid picture? Why? Why would you do that? Was the sunburn worth it? Blackpool, quintessentially British. Depressing and trying to recapture a former glory that was never that glorious. Any place that's famous for being a secluded natural area. Be prepared for crowds and garbage instead. St. Louis, our slogan should be, St. Louis, come for the arch, stay for nothing else. Buckingham Palace. In my opinion, Las Vegas Strip. It was much dirtier than I thought it would be and the homeless problem was something I wasn't expecting. Rio de Janeiro. I'm Brazilian, and it's the last place here where I would live. Crossing of the Guards at Buckingham Palace, London. I'm still bitter our tour guide made us wake up early just to watch this. Go to sleep or grab breakfast somewhere instead. Amsterdam, please leave us alone. Recap, Hollywood Walk of Fame, Plymouth Rock, Egypt, Dubai. The Philippines. Sparta, there is quite literally almost nothing there. Tombstone, Arizona, live in AZ, it's a complete tourist trap town with literally nothing good to offer. A single 30-second event happened over 100 years ago and they are still trying to sustain themselves off of it. Mount Rushmore. The Black Hills of South Dakota are worth seeing, but the Rushmore Monument is meh. Honestly, I would never go back to Thailand, especially as a woman traveling with only women. We spent the entire time fending off people trying to pull us into shops/ping pong shows, and had to be on constant alert for scams. People would literally grab my arm and physically try to pull us into their business. Even with all our caution, we still ended up getting scammed into paying for a hotel room that didn't exist. We reported it to the police and they essentially shrugged and said that it happened on the mainland, so they don't deal with it. It was exhausting and not relaxing at all. Even the beaches weren't all that great considering that is what people love to go for. Really the only positive for me was the food. There are other countries with beautiful beaches and who treat their tourists far better. I thoroughly enjoyed my time in Cambodia. While there were still scams, like everywhere, I found people were kind and helpful. The country itself was gorgeous, the beaches were much cleaner, and the history was fascinating. This thread is basically a few good travel tips and mostly people who probably shouldn't leave their suburb. Most people here haven't traveled. Most people in most places are nice, much friendlier than your neighbors. Go and see the world and then decide for yourself. Travel is the death of prejudice. North Korea. I hear Plymouth Rock is very disappointing. Plymouth Rock comes to mind. Venice. It's a beautiful city, but millions of agitated tourists in a city with a population of 60,000 is a recipe for disaster. The flooding, pollution, etc. has only made matters worse. Mount Rushmore. You've seen the pictures. That's it, they charge you a bunch of money to park for the privilege of exiting your car to look at it, nod your head, then get back in your car. The Grand Canyon. It's just a site of poor sediment control and a lack of proper soil stabilization. If it was my county, they would have made them hydro-seed the whole thing and then surround it with super silt fence. The first Starbucks in Seattle. Carlos Bakery. I used to work across the street from the Alamo. The disappointed looks on the underwhelmed faces of the tourists was the highlight of my day. The Liberty Bell in Philly. It's a bell. Plymouth Rock. The Alamo. Every kid in South Texas knows this to be true. Hollywood Walk of Fame. Homeless, trash, and the smell, until that's taken care of, just not worth it. Never go to Niagara Falls. On the American side, the Canadian side is fine. Ha ha. Why does everyone hate Plymouth Rock? It doesn't seem that bad, sad face. Still worth it, but Las Vegas has lost most of its appeal. It used to be dangerous and wild, but glitzy. Now, it's just fat boomers in flip-flops mixed into a sea of homeless people. About as glamorous as drinking a 40 behind the dumpster at 7 to 11. This one might be unpopular, but for me it's Rome. There's a lot of history and really cool stuff to see, but it's insanely touristy and uncomfortably populated. Want to see the Trevi Fountain? Hope you're tall enough to see over the ocean of other tourists trying to see it. That said, I went pre-COVID, so perhaps it's less awful now. Dubai, it's mostly hype, save your money. Go to a place with a better climate that's less expensive with more freedom and is more fun. Paris, the city is filthy, it doesn't feel welcoming to Americans specifically, and there are scammers everywhere. Don't go. Las Vegas, the place seems to be stuck in the 90s. Was amazing to see in Tuesday 90s, but now it's just old. It looks like it's frozen in time, and anything that made it good is mostly dying out. The Hollywood Walk of Fame. Many sections are cracked and uncapped. I tried to find the Three Stooges star, and there happened to be a homeless man camped out right on top of it. I don't know, this feels like a good place to share that NYC Natural History Museum is free, donation only, all the signs red like general admission $35 plus is required, slap a $5 bill on the table. The people at the counter know what to do. The White House, just meh. Venice, Italy, it stinks, the gondola drivers spend their time on their phones, everything is overpriced at its boring, they pressure you for tips, most of the food tastes like it came from a Chef Boyardee can, most workers are lazy and inattentive, drivers back on the mainland are extremely rude. There's a psychological phenomenon called Paris syndrome, where people visit Paris and have severe psychological trauma from how disappointing and terrible it is. Do yourselves a favor, leave the parasites to themselves and go see the rest of France. The countryside is amazing and the people there are wonderful. The Golden Gate Bridge is lovely to look at from a distance, but crossing it on foot or on a bike is a long walk/ride next to a 6-lane highway with a vicious crosswind. It's loud and unpleasant. Just take a photo from afar. Los Angeles, lived there for 2 years and did all the touristy stuff, and I was continually disappointed. Best part of going to LA is leaving and hitting up the 4 amazing national parks, all within a 5 to 6 hour drive of the city: Joshua Tree, Yosemite, Death Valley, Channel Islands, or the various other hidden gems like Rainbow Basin or Alabama Hills. CN Tower in Toronto. It's just meh. Cuba, my home country, it's not worth going there. It brings tears to my heart that my home country is not worth visiting. The country is toxic, the government is toxic, but the people are awesome. I'm 41 and I might not ever visit my birth country ever again. Might be an unpopular opinion, but the giant bean in downtown Chicago. Honestly, I don't think a place exists. Sure, there's some obvious answers that always come up with these questions, but some people also love those places. Who are we to judge what someone will like or dislike? Travel far and wide. OP. The Statue of Liberty. Just get a good view from the Staten Island ferry. If you are in Boston, Mike's Pastry in the North End. Hollywood Walk of Fame. Edinburgh Castle. Just came back home from there today and spent £20 to go in and walk around the grounds and see a few rooms inside the castle. Very limited, underwhelming, and not worth that money. The views of the city were the best part, but got the exact same view, if not better, for free by climbing Carlton Hill at the end of the town later in the day. Plus the beauty of all the structures on the hill with views of the 2 castles and Arthur's Seat. Edinburgh itself is amazing though. Can't wait to go back. White Sands. You arrive, see that the sand is white. The end. Mar-a-Lago. It's a SH&$T hole. England. Got English people. As an LA native, only go to Hollywood if you want to see junkies and scam artists. Jackpot, Nevada, in the winter. There is no real answer to this question. The reasons people visit / are interested in / enjoy different places are subjective and individual. What I find exciting, someone else might find dull for any number of reasons. People should go to anything they're interested in going to, and find out for themselves if they enjoy it / it's worth it or not. Plymouth Rock. It's just a random boulder surrounded by guardrails. We're not even sure that's where they landed. LA is a horrible place, despite how hard movies made by people who live in LA try to make it look awesome. Plymouth Rock. Totally underwhelming, however, Cranberry World is right up the street. The Great Salt Lake. It's smelly, the beaches are covered with sand gnats, and the water makes your skin itch. Pisa, there's a tower. It leans. Neat. Now what do you mean my train doesn't leave for another 3 hours? Walt Disney World, Orlando, Florida. The Liberty Bell in Philadelphia and the Love of Love Park in Philadelphia. The Liberty Bell isn't even the real Liberty Bell and the sign is like 18 inches by 18 inches. Literally feels like the scene from Spinal Tap. Great city to visit otherwise. Bali, unless you like dirty beaches and drugs. Niagara Falls. It's neat, but there are so many more beautiful places in Canada. Hollywood, CA 2022. Jamaica. Been 3 times. There are some nice resorts, but crime has increased so much in the towns surrounding them. The people used to be so much nicer. And the weed is bunk. Better weed at home. The Alamo. It's not in the middle of nowhere, it's in the middle of the city, San Antonio, and kinda boring imo. I found Salem, Massachusetts to be underwhelming and far too touristy. Make absolutely sure not to go around Halloween. The bar from Cheers. Hollywood Walk of Fame. Downtown Hollywood. Anywhere in Hollywood. I should have scrolled further down. Someone gave this answer already, lol. Mt. Rushmore. The Little Mermaid, Denmark. Everyone gets disappointed at how small it is when personally, I think the name implies what you're getting. The Alamo, nothing there but a wall. And it's tiny, so you will be done in 30 seconds on that trip. Don't waste your time. Mona Lisa, not because the painting itself isn't worth it, but purely because you'll see it behind 30 people's heads who are standing in front of you. Anywhere where tourism is the main moneymaker. Wall Drug. Café du Monde. Maybe I've just been there too many times with every single person that visits NOLA, but the line is crazy long, the beignets aren't even the best. The frozen coffee is pretty good though. Disney World. The southernmost point of the United States, in Key West, Florida, it's literally just a painted buoy on some concrete and there was a line all the way down the street the last time I was there. That's the only reason why I say it's not worth visiting. It's actually not the southernmost point either. The Truman Annex on one of the islands off of Key West is actually the southernmost point, but it's US Navy property, therefore, it's off limits to the public. Hollywood. I found Mount Rushmore underwhelming. If you're in South Dakota, Crazy Horse is far more impressive, and it isn't even finished yet. I went to watch the ball drop in NYC for New Year's Eve when I was younger. I remember being disappointed in how small it was compared to what it looks like on TV. Florida. Please stop coming here. We're full. Please. Miami, Florida. The only place I've been where a Bud Light costs more than at Disney World. Graceland, underwhelming at best. Opinion, the Mona Lisa, the painting is a lot smaller than you would think, and it draws the biggest crowd, so sadly, unless you are willing to push your way to the front, you're gonna have a better view on Google loudly crying face. New Orleans. Just don't. Los Angeles, I live here and it's like it. Los Angeles if you don't know your way around, or if you don't know anyone that lives there who can show you around. All of the main tourist spots are extremely crowded and dirty. On top of that, traffic in LA is absolutely absurd. Luckily for me, my cousin who has lived there for years showed me many awesome parts of LA I otherwise never would have visited during my time there. San Francisco is hands down the most overhyped place that I can think of. You'd take more pleasure in doing a tour of the local public bathrooms and come out slightly ahead. Mount Rushmore is as horrible as you might imagine it to be. The energy there is bad. For the cost, Disney World. To spend that much to wait in so many lines just boggles the mind. When I went to London, I really wanted to see the London Bridge. Well, it turns out it's just a boring bridge. Tower Bridge is more impressive. Elvis Presley's birthplace. It's a shack. The Alamo. I'm dead serious. Anyone who has visited that wants to go tells me afterwards that it was a total letdown. While not necessarily famous, anyone who's driven along I-95 in NC or SC in the United States has seen signs for south of the border. It's a Mexican-themed fun park just below the border of North Carolina. Featured in a movie or two though, its appropriated mascot Pedro was invented by two white guys. It's been there for decades and is very old-looking and run down. There's a huge sombrero on top of a drop tower ride. There's mini golf. There's motels, although I haven't seen the inside of them. I have stopped at a convenience store around 1 to 2 a.m. or so for coffee and a restroom stop. Not even worth that, honestly. Literally just keep driving. They're about to get a Busey's convenience store in Florence and I'm definitely going to stop there over SOTB. Los Angeles. The Bean in Chicago. Rio de Janeiro. Seattle. Niagara Falls. The Statue of Liberty. You wait in line for hours, get on a ferry, and then there's nothing to do but look at the statue and go into the gift shop once you get on the island. Then you have to wait in the line again to reboard the ferry. It's incredibly boring and anticlimactic, and the whole thing can waste an entire day. You can see it fine from the coast. The 9/11 Memorial, however, is a must-see. It's probably my bias because I've lived near St. Louis most of my life, but the arch is really just half of a giant unpainted McDonald's sign. I don't really get the appeal. Niagara Falls were a more sad version of Vegas with a large waterfall. Maybe if you were on the Canadian side, you could smoke some funny green stuff and stare into the falls while having poutine. That would be less sad than the American side. The Alamo City is built up all around it.